Hello and welcome to Empower PT. In today's video, we will be doing an analysis and I'll be giving my prediction on the proposed welterweight unification clash between Terrance Crawford, the WBO welterweight champion, and Errol Spence, the WBC and IBF welterweight champion. Before we start, I'd like to thank those of you who watched the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury prediction and analysis, and thank you for leaving the comments. I can promise you that this analysis will also be filled with clips, comparisons and graphs to help explanation. One of the great things about this upcoming bout is it also has a sense of those clashes in the past, such as Leonard Hearns, De La Hoya Trinidad, Barrera Morales, Calzaghe Kessler. Also at stake in this bout is boxing's mythical pound-for-pound title. In fact, this title is probably more coveted than the welterweight championships that they will be fighting for. It's a title that was long held by the likes of Floyd Mayweather and Roy Jones Jr. So before we get to the specifics of both fighters, what I'd really like to discuss is this mythical pound-for-pound title. And to do this, I'd like to show a graph. If you look at this graph, on the x-axis across the bottom, you've got speed and skill, and on the y-axis, you have strength. If we take the heavyweights, weighing 200 plus pounds, obviously as big men, they are generally very strong and powerful, hence high on the y-axis, but they tend to be slower, perhaps less skillful, not as light on their feet as the smaller fighters. Then, for example, we have the light heavyweights, who are lighter than the big men, not as strong, but definitely a bit quicker. Further down would be the middleweights. Again, the strength diminishes slightly, but the speed increases. The same for the 147-pound welterweights. Again for the lightweights, and so on for the featherweights, bantamweights, and flyweights. Now, these 8 weight classes are actually boxing's original divisions, although if we bring it up to date, we now have the full 17 weight classes. Now, you'll notice there are gaps between heavyweight, cruiserweight, and light heavyweight. This is just because the weight increments in the higher divisions are bigger than those in the smaller divisions. So, to state the obvious, an increase in strength and size generally results in a decrease in speed and skills. In fact, it might be better to substitute the strength and speed axes for punch power versus combination punching. During the 1960s, the Soviet Union were pioneers in weightlifting and accumulated many statistics on athletes' height, weight in relation to the amount of weight they actually lifted, and as a result devised programs for optimum strength results. During that time period, the Soviet Union had strong ties with Cuba and as a result helped pioneer Cuba's amateur boxing program. And for those that don't know, Cuba has probably the most successful amateur boxing program in the history of the sport, and they are to boxing what Jamaica is to sprinting, what America is to basketball, what Kenya is to long distance running. And as a result, there have been many great Cuban legends such as Felix Savon, Teofilio Stevenson, Mario Kindelin. Anyway, I have been very fortunate to be a senior coach at the Cuban Boxing Academy in London. And as a result, I've seen a wealth of information about the Cuban system on training fighters of various weight categories. So going back to the graph, and I'm giving a very broad summary, and keep in mind in Cuba, there's stats and stats and stats of information about this. When training bigger fighters, a good average number of punches within a given combination is 2 to 4 punches. When working with quicker, less powerful boxers, the recommendation is 4 to 8 punches within a combination. This is why a bigger fighter like Mike Tyson is considered special, because he can throw more punches in combination than the average heavyweight. Or why a smaller fighter with crushing one-punch power is unique. I'm thinking of someone like Nassim Hamed. Then there is this sweet spot in the middle that is a mix of combination punching with some power. This is where the recommendation is 3 to 6 punches in a combination. But what do we notice about that sweet spot? Almost all our mythical pound-for-pound kings have competed here. Think Ray Robinson, Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Roy Jones Jr., and Floyd Mayweather. Also looking at this middle area, and my next assertion may be coincidence, but what do we notice about this mid area? It's actually the size of the average man. And what I mean is, for those gentlemen who kind of get what I mean, when you're in a crowded place and you look across the room, anyone who looks that kind of 135 pounds or smaller, we sometimes say, oh, that small guy over there. Or if the person is, and I'm just suggesting, 175 pounds or bigger, we say, oh, the big guy just walking in the room. So could it be that this is the one sport where the average sized man can actually receive the highest plaudits? So to the actual fight itself, and for me, Crawford has achieved more in his career, going from lightweight through to welterweight. He beat the respected Gamboa in 9 rounds, although many may suggest that Gamboa was really best at featherweight, so he was a blown up featherweight. Crawford became the WBO welterweight champion by beating Jeff Horn in 9 rounds. And I know there are a lot of experts who question exactly how good Horn was. To me, that fight demonstrated Crawford's very long 74-inch reach for a man of his height. He's only 5'8", and his use of his very versatile, powerful lead hand. A lead hand which dropped Kell Brook, which shows he does have power at welterweight. There are some who may suggest that Brook was damaged goods since he lost to Gennady Golovkin and previously to Errol Spence. Another one of Crawford's attributes is his ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox. See here against Amir Khan. Crawford has also shown his ability to judge distance, especially in the knockout of Julius Indongo, who is a tall southpaw like Errol Spence. In one of his recent bouts against Kavaliauskas, Crawford did get hit a little bit more than usual. But sometimes, even against an overmatched opponent, on paper, they put up a resistance more than was expected. And in my opinion, he actually outgutted the Lithuanian. Every so often a fighter is going to be posed a test, and you just have to outfight your opponent. So now let's look at Errol Spence, who for me is what I call a patient stalker. Look at this bit of footage of him patiently hounding Mikey Garcia all around the ring. For me, Errol Spence's best performance was in the action-packed battle with Sean Porter. And this next sequence really defines, for me, what Errol Spence is about. He patiently jabs. Then when Porter tries to respond, he jumps back out of range, keeping his rear hand glued to his chin. Rides out the bad patch, and then comes back with big shots, particularly body shots. And he's like a true warrior. He's responding to everything Porter does. But the significant thing is, in the midst of the exchanges, he's keeping his glove on his chin, and he's coming back with body punches too. In fact, he kind of reminds me of another defensive wizard, Ronald Winky Wright. Although for me, at welterweight, Errol Spence is a bigger puncher than Ronald Winky Wright was at light middleweight. Errol Spence also throws very sharp counter punches. And it's very risky exchanging with him. Just ask Sean Porter. With both men being southpaws, there is a possibility that they may cancel each other out. A little note on southpaws. The University of Manchester did a study of 10,000 boxers and MMA fighters. Its findings were that 17.3% of male boxers were left-handed compared to 12.6% of men in the regular population. These findings were similar for female boxers. 12.6% of them were left-handed compared to only 9.9% in the regular population. So basically, boxing has an over-representation of left-handers compared to the wider population. The study also said that southpaws had a 54% chance of winning a bout against an orthodox fighter. This figure actually surprised me, and I actually thought it would have been higher, especially as the adage in boxing is that all things being equal, the southpaw has the advantage. Especially as the stats dictate that you have a 1 in 5 chance of facing a southpaw. This also had me thinking, how many times in these big unification pound for pound matchups do you see a matchup between two southpaws? In recent years, all I could come up with was Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux. And unfortunately, Rigondeaux proved to be a little bit too small to be effective. So please comment if you can think of any other all southpaw matchups that I haven't thought of for the sort of pound for pound top 10 fighters. So, to my prediction, for me, both men are great all-round fighters. They have amazing stamina, they're great finishers. But it seems to me I'm picking between Crawford's ability to time his opponent, use his very long reach for a shorter man, and jump in and out of range, against Spence's very tight defence and his cool head under pressure. So my pick, and I'm even more unsure of this than I was with the Tyson Fury-Anthony Joshua prediction, is for Spence's cool head to see the day. So we're probably talking a points victory. I'm going to say 8 rounds to 4, 7 rounds to 5. Like I said, both of these guys have amazing skills. This fight really should be a big pay-per-view blockbuster, just like Mayweather and De La Hoya. Unfortunately, neither fighter is a household name yet, and both box on rival promotions. So Spence is on PBC, Crawford is on Top Rank. So I really do hope we see this bout. If you disagree with anything I've said, please make a comment. If you agree with everything I've said, please comment. If you completely disagree with everything I've said, feel free to comment, keep it clean. On a completely different note, I'd like to say that some of my boxers and some of my clients have been receiving coaching from me via FaceTime video. If you feel that your boxing goals or your strength and conditioning or weight management goals would benefit from one-to-one coaching from me, just drop me an email at empowerpt@hotmail.com. I would suggest looking at some of my other videos to get an idea of what I'm about, and hopefully from some of the graphs you've just seen, you'll see I do know something about boxing. Otherwise, stay tuned to the channel. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please comment, please like, please share. Thank you very much. This is Empower PT.